Thank you so much for inviting us. Dr. Valley and myself, Dr. Valley, is a computational chemist by training and an analytical chemist by training. So we work collaboratively on our chemistry courses, and general chemistry is one of those. He came up with the element parade portfolio, and I've been teaching it for a while and also adding and updating the course. So that's why we are presenting today together. And Dr. Valley, could you start with it, and then I'll take over later.
All right, well, thank you all for your attention. So today we'll be talking about a specific assignment that's changed over the years to incorporate AI. First, we'll talk a little bit about AI to refresh ourselves, and then talk about this specific assignment, the element parade portfolio, very chemistry assignment, how Dr. Effiong integrated AI into that, and sort of some of the things we've seen in terms of the students interacting with the AI and the outcomes that we see. So I have this nice quote from Sun Tzu: "If you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles." So hopefully we have a pretty good knowledge of ourselves and maybe our students, and we're now learning about AI. I'm not saying it's necessarily the enemy, but we can maybe take that and say, if we know as much as we can about all these things, we can move forward without too much fear. And so maybe a month or two back, so I'm a computational chemist. I went to a talk. Some of this stuff with AI is not new to me. It's like, oh yeah, like we've been doing this in computational chemistry. They haven't called it that necessarily. But what we're sort of dealing with when we talk AI is generally these large language models, which is sort of a specific subset of AI. We have this nice little diagram here that is trying to show sort of the process in terms of generating an AI model. Lots of data goes in. The sort of breakthrough that recently happened with the large language models was being able to not just look what words were nearby, but associate them a little bit further out, so you could get more of the context, and that sort of led to them being able to do a fairly good job at making themselves sound human. And so with these models, right, there's a huge amount of information, more than we can reasonably fathom, which makes sort of what they're doing magical. But ultimately, we have to remember that these are very statistical approaches. So they tend to give you the statistically best answer. And what that can do, right, you have some hallucinations with that, where it's sort of matching things statistically, but they're not real. You have a box creativity where it can generate things that seem creative, but the creativity is boxed by the data you're using to generate the model. And these models, they tend to be easy to use, right? You just type into a box, but very skill-based to master. So there's a skill to making the prompts that are useful to generating good outcomes. So it's very computer-based. It's garbage in, garbage out. If you give it something that's not that great, it's going to respond in kind. If you have the skill to generate a prompt that is very knowledgeable of what it is doing and how it's doing it, you'll probably get better results out of it. And of course, with all this, there's sort of the idea that AI is inevitable, right? It's going to be here. And I think for the most part, that's true, but I think we have some pushback in saying, how exactly is that implementation going to work? Because with AI, there's a lot of ethical concerns, including where the data is being sourced from. So, and I think we should all be cautious in using AI, because anything we put into an AI program that's connected to the internet may ultimately be now owned by that corporation or whatever is running that AI. They may have language that says you use this, and then we can use that to train our models. So, be somewhat cautious with that right there. getting data, right? The more data they can get, the better they can do. Some other issues are energy use. These programs use a lot more energy than, say, something like a Google search, and may not return better results. So using them in a smart fashion is very useful. And also the ethical concern of, depending on how you get your data, it can leave ideas out, right? So these are generally sourced from the internet. Things from books that haven't been digitized yet may not make it there. Right? They're generally based on English information, so things from other languages may not be incorporated, things from other cultures may not be incorporated, and that's sort of that box creativity, right? It's putting everything into one line. So, there's a lot of advantages, as we've seen, but also there are some concerns that we need to be aware of to make sure we're doing things smartly. And so before, right, sort of AI took the scene quite strongly, we had an assignment, the Element Parade portfolio. And so here we see sort of a snapshot of one of the assignments. This is a writing assignment for the 2-semester general chemistry sequence that we have, where each student is assigned an element to focus on. And then there's different things that they're doing throughout the course. They're gathering facts about that element. They're thinking about the bigger picture with that element and writing some short narratives. They're performing calculations based on some of that information they've gathered. And then they're ultimately considering the sources of information that they're using to get that information. And so they go through a sequence of assignments. This is the 5th one in one of the semesters, where they're looking at sort of how elements are used and sort of our responsibility to make sure that we don't overuse things. And ultimately, they gather all this information about this specific element that they have. And at the end of the semester, they create a video sort of summarizing all that information. So this is where we were before sort of AI came on the scene. And then once AI came on the scene, I'll hand it off to Dr. Effiong to walk us through how we incorporated AI.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Valley. So basically what happens is that at the start of the semester, each student will pick an element, and that becomes their element body for the whole semester. Okay. Now, in CHS, California Northstate University College of Health Sciences, we incorporate a signature writing assignment known as the Element Parade portfolio. The purpose of EPP, we call it EPP for short. The purpose of EPP is to provide additional writing opportunities to practice scientific communication and to develop critical thinking. Last spring of 2024, I updated the EPP by incorporating interactions with Gen AI with similar outcomes. Now, what are the components of EPP? First and foremost, there are 3 of them, and each is aligned with a lecture unit or units. So each EPP comprises facts, narratives, calculations, chemical ethics, blog, and annotated bibliography. So the deliverables for this particular course would be the final EPP, which would be the revised 3 EPPs, and a 1-minute video telling us how amazing their element was. So for the fact, what do we expect to see? I expect to see them give me specific facts, like the number of protons, the density, specific heat of the element, and things like that. Those have to be cited properly using the American Chemical Society citation, the ACS format. Then there is the next section, which is tell me more, the narrative. They would go in and tell us more about their element. Of course, with proper citation using the ACS format. There will be calculations, like Dr. Valley said. And those calculations will be tied to the unit that is being explored in the lecture portion. How about the ethics in chemistry? Our students are introduced in ethics in chemistry, things that they should be aware of. And there is a blog also. Our students they are present day, young, 17, 18-year-old, so they do a lot of blogging. I introduce blogging in the EPP. And of course, all this, they have to properly cite their work. And we have a section called annotated bibliography. Now, having done that, they will turn it in, and then they will, here comes the interesting part, the Gen AI portion. They will then tell Gen AI to go ahead and do the same thing that I have just enumerated. And the intent is that they would complete the assignment after they have actually done it. So now they will critically evaluate AI's work on the assignment that they have just finished. They submit that a week after they have, submitted the first one. Now, they are supposed, they would do a reflective narrative on each of the assignments, where they will tell us the pros and cons of their final work. So now, here is, let's quickly go to their take. Nick, would you go to the next one? Here are the reflections and outcomes. That's the students' takeaway. The assumptions and inaccuracies, that's what they said. That they got actually, the second point, they got actually frustrated because it didn't show any intuitive approach to the prompt that they gave them. They could not access anything that was web-based. Remember, they were using the free version. Our university doesn't have the pro. So in order to have it an even playing field for everybody, everybody had to use the free version. Could you go to the next one? It was incapable of higher order reasoning. They saw it as being insensitive. They raised ethical issues. My students overall had a negative experience. And I would quickly say that probably because it could have been the technology is still evolving. It is in its infancy. So their perspective may change later on. Go to the next. The pros. It was very fast in giving them result, albeit that they had to fact check whether it was right or wrong. Remember, they had already done the work, so they know. It provides structure and new ways of presenting information. And their overall, I still had to say their overall experience was they would rather do it themselves. That was what they told me. Okay, now our overall outcomes, they took ownership of this work. There is trust, and it really enhanced their critical thinking because they had to see what it wasn't doing from their fact check. They knew that that wasn't right information that ChatGPT was spitting out to them. Okay, now go to the next, and thank you so much.